Hello everyone, happy 4th of July. My name is Sabin Orcan, I'm the publisher of Music Romania. It is an honor for me to host this Independence Day Forum. The next day after the big party for 4th of July hosted by the Honorable Adrian Zuckerman, Ambassador of the United States to Romania from 2019 to 2021, and Dr. Nawaf Salameh, founding chairman of Alexandrian Group. For all of you that don't know yet, I have to tell you that both of them are some of the most passionate friends of Romania. And I say that because Mr. Zuckerman was born here and still feels like one of us. And Mr. Nawaf, which was an immigrant to Romania, is now one of the first serious Romanian investors in the United States. So before we start our debate today, let me ask them what they felt that the relationship between the United States and Romania is so important, and what can do better to benefit us all. Mr. Ambassador.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Nawaf, thank you very much for hosting not just this forum, but our celebration yesterday at this magnificent hotel in Sinaia that Alexandrian developed. The United States is Romania's best friend. Romania, as everybody knows, is one of the defenders of the eastern flank of Europe against Russian aggression. Along with Poland, it forms an axis. It's the first line of defense against Russian aggression and aggression from other countries as well. And it also forms an economic linchpin for Europe, Southern Europe, as well as various areas in Asia. One of the most important keys to European security is economic security as well as military national security. You cannot have military national security without economic security and economic well-being. I think Romania has a brilliant future ahead of it. I am confident that it will continue to grow and develop in an economic sound fashion. And as you will hear more from our panelists today, the economic plans for Romania as well as the national security plans for Romania and the region will be discussed in more detail. And I'm very, very optimistic about the future. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nawaf.
Happy 4th of July for everybody. Thank you very much. I'm glad because I'm here in my home and in this hall it is first time. Well done, the team here in Alexandrian Experience. I think I need hours to explain what it is very important for US and for us in Romania to have a strong relationship economic, because today I think the war between, let's say, all the world and Russia is economic, and they play economic through using the food, using the cereal, using the gas, using the petrol, everything. It is economic. Now, like investor, I am in Romania immigrant last 41 years. And last almost 10 years, I'm investor in United States of America. I think today to bring our colleague, our friend from America to come to invest in Romania, we need to prepare Romania. We need to prepare the rules in Romania to accept their mentality, because their mentality it's much with Poland, much with Czechia, with Slovenia, Slovakia, with UK, with German, with every country in Europe except Romania. Here in Romania, I think we need seriously to move on and quickly to change some, let's say, to upgrade our law, because one of the simple law in America, everybody, then when they have two companies, they created holding. In Romania, it's forbidden to have holding. So that means even our friend, they want to come to Romania, they cannot come to do business here in Romania. This is very simple. Again, they want to come here. A lot of companies show interest to come here. But we need here to upgrade our law and business law and rules to make our friend from America to come to Romania. Because secondly, and here is very important, and I want to send message to all my colleagues in Romania. If you are an investor in US, you can from US deal globally, and you are going to have huge support from the central government of US, and every country where exists embassy, they will support you like investor. This is very important for us. When we go to invest in US, we are not investing just in US. We can, from US, to become a global player. When I take the decision to go US, because I want to be strong global player. And I found only country from 248 countries, all the world, they can support that, United States of America. None of the rest of the countries I have a relationship, either I'm live less 41 years, Romania example like country, they can't support me, and the country I'm exist. United States of America, my business, they can support me globally. So everybody from when you want to go to invest in US, put in mind, he can play a global player from America globally.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your service, not only to the United States, also to Romania. Thank you, Mr. Nawaf, for hosting this this great event in your beautiful hotel here in Sinaia. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for Nawaf and I to host this event and hear from the guests that you will be speaking with. It's very important for people to understand the issues surrounding Romania, surrounding the United States, and how the bilateral relationship can be improved and move forward. Thank you very much, Sabir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So, allow me to introduce the speakers from the first part of our debate. Mr. Răzvan Mustață, he's a Dean of the Faculty of Economics at Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj-Napoca. Mr. Mark Beacom, he's the CEO of Black Sea Oil and Gas, the first company that started to extract natural gas from the Black Sea. And also from the United States is Mr. Craig Martin, co-chair of DLA Piper, one of the largest law firms in the world. I hope, yeah, he is in connection with us. How are you doing? What is hour in the United States?
It is 3:46 a.m. Nice to be with you.
I'm sorry for that, Mr. Martin. So I hope we will have a live discussion. I have some questions, but I want to have a understanding of the challenges to the global economy. This is the topic of our first debate, and I have a question for you all. What do you think is the greatest challenge to global economy right now, and how do you think Romania should face it? Mr. Mustață, please.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. I think that we have at the global level, we have from economic point of view, because we could speak about the geopolitics, but from economic point of view, the main challenge is related to the part of inflation. We know that the inflation is an economic phenomenon that is very challenging with different parts and interference with different sectors. If we are going to make some comparison with the stock exchange, is something similar. If something very small is happened within the public area or within decision makers or something like this, you're going to see a reaction on the stock market. And the same thing is with the inflation. So considering the fact that we have the war in Ukraine, we have all the let's say, the tension between US and China, and all the things related to the delivery of goods and everything in a global economy, the inflation from economic point of view, it's a major challenge for the economy. Right now, we could say that it's a better sign all over the world, because within the United States, we get the decrease of the rate of inflation, which means that, all right, we are expecting the same things with another economy, in particular in Romania and European Union. But if we are not, I don't know, challenge this phenomenon in a proper manner, it's possible to get up with the inflation, and we get a lot of consequences from economic point of view. This is, from my perspective, the main challenge.
Thank you, Professor Mustață. Mr. Bickham. Now, we'll talking a bit about the energy sector, which is going through great changes right now. But what is the biggest challenge for the global economy?
There's so many to choose from, isn't there? So, because my focus is energy, I see the world this way. So I see it slightly different. We have this clearly an existential threat of global warming and what it's creating for the entire planet. And so there's this real effort to get into a transition economy, move away from fossil fuels. And listen, I'm a fossil fuel guy. We just developed the first gas field in the Romanian Black Sea in over 30 years. But I'm fully aware that we need to move from fossil fuels for the benefit of the planet into something that is sustainable. At the same time, we have an energy security threat because of what's happened in the Ukraine, and we saw economies move heaven and earth to try and store up their energy, because if you don't have energy coming into your country, the whole thing collapses. So it's interesting for Romania, because both of these things come together in a positive way, because Romania can offer the world a solution that takes care of both of these things. First of all, in the transition period, I fully believe we need natural gas. We're not going to be able to make up of the trillions of kilowatt hours of energy we're going to need overnight. But certainly gas can take care of that while we transition. Romania is sitting there with an abundance of gas. The Black Sea has 150 billion cubic meters behind pipe. And so it's there to be developed. And so very few countries have that ability to turn on the tap and provide the natural gas it needs for itself, and even provide a hungry Western European market that's desperate for gas and bring in all sorts of value to the economy. And at the same time, the transition looks very interesting. In particular, offshore wind. Again, I'm a Black Sea person. They're talking 76 gigawatts of potential power in the Black Sea. So Romania has the near-term and the long-term solution that also can benefit the economy. Only Romania has this compared to many other countries that are starving for this benefit. The bad news is, it's very difficult to execute. We had a horrendous time bringing our Black Sea development to fruition. And we'll talk later about our next project, which is wind. We're concerned we're going to have this similar resistance to being able to get development going. So I think energy is the problem, security and transition, and Romania is sitting in a very positive position.
We'll get back to that, to the energy, what the problems is facing. But just let's go to Mr. Martin. And Mr. Martin, the same question. What do you think are the greatest challenges to the global economy right now?
Thank you for having me, and hopefully you can hear me all right. I think Mark has hit on something, which is the transition, and it's not just in the context of energy and energy security. That's obviously one issue. But I think that in our generation, what we're going to see in the coming years is the more emergence of smaller and growing countries that will compete with some of the existing established countries, and the way in which our global economy integrates and transition. I think that that is a potential great challenge and a challenge for all of us to seek to integrate and work together in a peaceful way rather than in a way of conflict. Unfortunately, there are still parts of the world that are under conflict. We all know where many of those places are. And I think your question was implicit in that is, where does Romania want to fit into that? And I think that as Romania comes out of its past being under what we call the Iron Curtain and emerges as a center of Europe, as Europe shifts eastward, part of what Romania will need to do is figure out how it wants to fit in to the global economy and how it wants to integrate and be part of that transition, as Mark has suggested, as possible.
I have one more question because you opened this discussion. I think you both mentioned it. In Europe here, we are more concerned right now with the Russian threat. You in the United States, on the other hand, are more worried about a confrontation with China, right? I mean, in economic terms, we are concerned about energy, about the Russian gas in Europe, but you are more concerned about the confrontation with China. Both countries are challenging the West, right, the Western world. How this confrontation will shape our economy in the future? What do you think, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I think the current administration likes to refer to their interaction with China as a competition rather than a confrontation. I think that the trade wars that we had maybe 5 years ago had a significant impact. And as Xi Jinping goes into his third term and maybe will exist beyond that, I think there's a realization that in many areas there's going to be a fair amount of competition. And what I think you've already seen some of is that in the global economy, both China and the United States are putting to other countries in the developing world a choice. Do you want to be part of the Western US world, or do you want to be part of the China world? You see that in some of the telecommunications issues. You see that in some other issues. Russia, I think, is still uncertain. Obviously, right now, the world is aligned against them to help Ukraine. But they obviously have tremendous resources that are needed in the world. So I think it will be difficult to completely exclude them. And it will be interesting to see as hopefully the war comes to an end, what happens with leadership there, how they will fit back into the world. And I think there will be an effort because of their size and their resources for the world to determine a way for them to fit back into the global economy.
Thank you. I will get back to Mark about the energy war here in the region, but I want to go back to Professor Mustață. We have a lot of resources in Romania, not only natural gas, but I can give an example. Last night I found out from Mr. Nawaf that we have here in Romania one thing that is essential to make whiskey, and they are imported. The Scotian people are imported it from here. Then we have a lot of natural resources, rare metals and stuff like that. We don't use it at the maximum value. Isn't this a solution to inflation, debt, and some other things of the economy, some other problems of the Romanian economy right now?
Yeah, of course. About what Mark mentioned, that part of resources as we have it within the Black Sea represent or could represent or could be transformed into a game changer for the Romanian economy. We have a lot of resources here in Romania. Resources means natural resources as gas in the Black Sea, or opportunities as what could represent the Danube River, for example, or other opportunities here in Romania. And if we are taking care of all of this in the proper manner, we could transform everything in a game changer for our economy. And I don't know, something is difficult for me or my colleagues to understand why the policymakers and decisions makers doesn't realize that if we take these resources and change it in the proper manner in game changer, as I mentioned, all right, this could change our status on the global economy. We could become a global player on the market. This war in Ukraine, represent a strong challenge for us because it's near our borders, almost near our borders. But we could transform this situation in an opportunity for Romania. Maybe you know that it's something common in our history, that we started in 1949 to wait for the United States or American citizens to come here in Romania. Right, they are here.
And liberate us.
Yeah, they are here, all right, and we are in a position very, very positive, if I could say this, for our country. So it's important to have these resources, to use it in our interest, from economic interest, and in this condition, it's possible to not be so connected with the European economy. What I want to mention by this, we know that Romanian economy is a small and open economy, but it's very connected with the Western European economy. So what's happened within the Western European economy, it's possible with a delay of few months or something like this to happen at another level within Romanian economy. It's about the contagions effects between the national economy or regional economies. So when something is happened within a big economy or major economies in the European Union, it's sure that will happen in Romanian economy. At, of course, a different level, but if you are going to use these opportunities in a favor of our economy, it's possible to not get the same effect, or to be sure that what's happened within these economies will happen in our economy. So it's very important for us to use it in a proper manner and to use this opportunity with the energy crisis and everything in Europe and all over the world.
Thank you. Mr. Bickham, we have this paradoxical situation. We want, all the Western states are committed to reducing the greenhouse and to combat climate change, you mentioned it. So we want cleaner energy, but then Romania is one of the countries, I think, after Netherlands, with the country with the largest natural gas reserve, not only offshore, but also onshore. We're not using it at the maximum capacity. What we need, is the policymakers, that's Professor Mustață mentioned it, is the law, is that we are not ready for this challenge, we don't understand this is a window of opportunity, that we have to use it. What is it?
Okay, well, I could really get in trouble here, so I'm going to be a little careful. There is a reality of the resistance. You know, we've been at the development of our Black Sea discovery, trying to bring it online for 12 years, which is a horrendously long period of time, when clearly it was needed by the country. Romania imports gas. You know, why not buy it from your own supplier, and royalties and taxes go to Romania rather than to some foreign country, so it makes all the sense in the world. And what we found going through our development was there wasn't any overt resistance. In fact, there was always verbal support for the development of the Black Sea. And what we found in practice was the local authorities tended to be very good. If they had a problem, they told us we had a problem, and we had to work with them to make sure we accommodated their needs. The central authorities were a little more opaque, and I have never been able to understand what is the issue. Why, when we go forward to try and get something done, there's some sort of aggression or some sort of blockage. Things aren't going to get done, and it's clear they're deliberately being stalled. And so you can speculate, and I don't have the answer, but you can speculate. You say, well, it's geopolitical, it's the Russians. It's obviously they have vested interest. So maybe they have a part to play in it. Or it's not geopolitical, but it's political. One politician was trying to fight with another one and is using the blockage to try and undermine this other's position, and that takes place in an area that you never get visibility on. So it could be geopolitical, it could be political, it could be opportunistic. Somebody feels if I'm a gatekeeper and get in the way, I can, enrich myself some way. They found with us that never works, but it can be opportunistic. And it could be ideological. It could be ideological and we did run into that there is a natural resistance when a foreign company is coming in to exploit the resources. They're finite. Once they're taken, they're gone forever. And so there's some political factions who do not want foreign companies to come in. There's some political factions do not want it to be anything other than state control. So I think we faced a gambit of all of those things, but they were absolutely real.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Beacon, because I know this sector pretty well. What are the total taxes that your company is paying to the Romanian state? What is the percentage? Because I know it's very high.
Yeah, so there's a number of levels of taxation. So it starts off the royalties, 13% off the top. Everyone pays this corporation tax, 16%. And then we have an additional windfall profits tax, they call it, a windfall profits tax that was introduced just before we were going to take FID, just before we did take FID in a final investment decision in 2019. And the idea of the windfall profits tax was that, if the company is making a windfall, it should be taken by the state.
So the state is getting a lot of money from you. What is the problem?
Yeah, and it's based on pricing, which is actually kind of a progressive tax in a positive way. But the negative part of, if I just go into the tax itself, philosophically, the negative part of it is it's actually not a windfall profits tax. Instead they said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce this new tax. You are going to get you risked $500 million, fully risked. You're going to get your money back. You're going to pay all the royalties and the CIT, of course, but on this windfall tax, you're going to get your money back. You're going to get a return that's normal. We're going to see a pot of money left. Let's call it a windfall. Let's agree how we're going to split it. But the way the tax was introduced is on day one. Day one, we pay a big chunk of money in this tax. It's not a windfall tax. It's right from day one. So we may never recover our investment if things go wrong. If the CapEx shoots up, the prices go down, the reservoirs shut down. I mean, there's a possibility, theoretically, that you'll never get your money back. And yet you paid a huge proportion in windfall tax. And this is it's more the philosophical nature of the tax rather than the quantity of the tax itself that's caused such grief in developing the Black Sea.
Thank you. I will get back to Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, the most recent ranking of foreign investments in Romania look like this. It's Germany with 15 billion euros, is Austria with 10 billion euros, is France with 9 billion euros, and Italy with 7 billion. And then is the United States with 7.8 billion euros. So We have four countries that don't have even half of the USA GDP. They are investing more in Romania, are closer to us, are our European allies. What do you think the Romanian authorities should do in order to boost the American investments here?
Well, obviously that's a big question, but I can give you some thoughts based on some of my experience. The capital in the United States, there's a lot of competition for it, and the investors that control it have rigorous guidelines as to how they invest their money and the type of return that they expect. And so as they're looking around the world for places to invest, if they're going to be taking high risk, they expect high return. And they oftentimes want to stay away from places that have extraordinary risk or risks that are outside the control of a typical investor. So when you have situations where government action is unpredictable, enforcement rights in the courts is unpredictable, and there's not certainty as to how investors and businesses will be treated, I think it's part of the process that has U.S. investors sending capital perhaps to other areas that don't have those same issues. So anything that could be done to provide more certainty in the business environment, I think would be a positive step towards encouraging U.S. investors to consider Romania as a place they might wish to invest.
Thank you. Professor Mustață, I have a question for you. You spoke about the inflation, but some other economists are talking about the problem of the government debt. Some other are talking about lack of foreign investments or more foreign investments, but some others are talking about the lack of performance of more than 1,000. I think there are 1,200 state companies in Romania. Some of them, as Mark is nodding, some of them are in the energy sector. I mean, the largest energy providers in Romania are state-owned, fully owned. Some of them are listed on the market, but also the state controls the largest stake. And also we have probably 1,000 that are not profitable. Some of them are in sensitive areas, like I told you, like the salt. Nobody knows, but the salt is very valuable, and we have a lot of salt in Romania, and there is a state company in charge of that. Never been privatized, nobody wanted to list it on the market and so on. So what do you think about that?
Here are two main aspects or two main perspectives. One, it's one political one, and I'm not specialist in politics, but as a simple citizen of Romania, I think that the state should be involved on a lower manner within the economy. It's something basic, right, to keep the economy free in order to work based on its own principles, because it's something sustainable on a medium or long term. And the other perspective is the economic perspective. Here is very simple. If it's not profitable, all right, change it. We don't say that, all right, it's necessary to, I don't know, to close these companies, right? But make some restructurations, make some, I don't know, mergers, or put it together in something, or selling, all right? Keep some percentage of control or something like this in this, or interest percentage in these companies, but selling and give it to the private property investors and to make it profitable. Because if we are going to keep this amount of companies which are not profitable for the Romanian economy, right? You are not allowed to be amazed the fact that you get inflations or something like this at some high level, higher than a normal one, okay, in normal condition. So this kind of companies, in the condition in which they are not profitable, of course, influence the part of inflation, because they generate cost, they generate a lot of expenses, but not any kind of revenues. And based on this, we could increase, I don't know, the level of stability, decrease the level of stability of Romanian economy. So you need to make something with this. It's very simple. It's something basic in economy. You are not allowed to keep it and just keep it. All right, doesn't matter. If you have an I don't know, maybe a national security interest, right? Say it in this manner, right? And we understand it. But how many companies could be from the part or within the group of national security interest, all right? Not so many.
One more question. You have some estimations about the economic growth, inflation, debt until the end of this year. What are the numbers?
We are running right now from 2 years ahead, running on research project, which is a very nice product from our side, which is called Romanian Economic Monitor. The main objective of this platform, which is a free one, is to monitorize everything within the Romanian economy and make some predictions. And what's very funny, because in research we need to have a part of funny things, right? What is very funny that is the fact that our predictions are much more closer to the European Union ones in comparison with our government's predictions. And based on this, we know that
You mean the government is always more optimistic than the European Union?
Yeah. We know that, for example, for inflation, we were on a plateau of evolutions, and we start the decrease in the level of inflation rate. And based on our estimation, it's possible to have at the end of the year an inflation rate with 7 and something. And based on our prediction, it's expected to the end of 2024 to get an inflation rate with 4 and something. Right, 4.5 or something like this. And also in terms of economic growth, translated or using the GDP as main factors, we had an prediction of, or an estimation for 2.5% of increase this year, but considering an update of factors or main, I don't know, factors on the global economy and Romanian economy, we reshape the estimation at 3% this year. And if we are thinking about the level of growing of GDP before the pandemic time, in 2019, if I'm not wrong, the growth of the GDP was 3.9. And if we are going to get in 2033 an increase of 3%, which is, of course, is lower than the initial provisions and perspectives, but if we keep it in this part, it's a good thing because it's a positive one, and it's closer to the fact that on the situation prior to the pandemic time. We'll see what's happened. We know that we have the war in Ukraine, we have all the tension at the global level, and also we have an election year here in Romania, which based on our behavior during the time, during the history after 1990, we know that the election years are difficult from economy.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Bikram, you mentioned another project for wind energy in the Black Sea. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for the plug. We had a press release yesterday, and as I mentioned, we've built this this gas project, we built all of this infrastructure offshore, and it brings the infrastructure to the onshore in Vadu. And this infrastructure isn't just available for the reservoirs that we're producing, the gas reservoirs we're producing. It actually is leveraging, highly leveraging, to use for renewable projects. And so offshore wind, which, you know, as I said, in Romania, there's the experts say maybe there's 76 gigawatts of power. Just to put that in perspective, Romania consumes, I think it's around 11 gigawatts of power. So it's a big number. And so what we see is that our infrastructure allows us to find the solution for bringing the power from offshore all the way across the coast into the lands and connect to Transelectrica. Because that, it doesn't sound like a big deal. You could just bring cables from offshore to tie into Transelectrica, but you know, there's the biosphere, there's Natura 2000 you got to worry about, there's the military zones, both onshore and offshore, there's tourist areas, there's fishing rights, there's harbors, there's anchorages, there's resistance in the communities because maybe they don't want to bring in this infrastructure. And we find out that this huge coast that Romania has gets very, very, very small. There's very few opportunities to find a way to bring, whether it's gas pipeline infrastructure or power cable infrastructure through. Well, we've, after all of our pain, you know, we have our corridor. We have our corridor for the gas, our gas project. And so it's very easy. We've already gone through all of the environmental, the cultural, the military, all of that effort, and our community's on board. So, and we own the lands. We've already addressed this one very critical issue of how you bring the power home. And so we press release that we've started the permitting process to do 3 gigawatts of power, the power corridor itself. And we're starting that even though there is yet to have an offshore wind law passed through Parliament. So nobody can actually start offshore wind development. There's no way to get a concession offshore. But, you know, we felt, look, we can be proactively getting the one solution, part of the puzzle in place, because it's going to be needed in order to address getting power from the wind farms.
How big the investment will be, approximately?
Well, if we're going to ramp up from 3 gigawatts of the power corridor to actually being also the developer of the offshore wind farms, which we don't have to be. You know, we could do all 3 gigawatts, or we could co-invest, or we could just be the supplier. Carlyle is our 90% shareholder, and 3 gigawatts of tire development would be $6 to $9 billion. Very few companies can write that kind of check. But thankfully, Carlyle's in a position where if they could find that the investment makes sense, and actually what Craig said earlier, Carlyle's in that exact position that was mentioned. It invests in 5 continents on a spectrum of ideas, and it looks at each country, and each country has to stand on its own to be competitive against another investment. So right now, you know, things look promising for this 3 gigawatts, and my hope is that you know, Carlyle would be full in for the entire investment, but that depends on what comes out of the offshore law, what fiscal regime, what problems might have, how risky is the investment. But they certainly are in a position to be able to write the check if they found this to be the right investment for the country, for themselves and for the country, of course.
That's a very great news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Martin, so I will let you have the final word about that. It's not about love in international relationship. Even though we love the Americans, we waited for them for 50 or more years, like Professor Mustafa already mentioned. But it's also about laws, about politics. So I will ask you just to follow your answer earlier. What exactly do you think it should happen in the next couple of years to bring more American investment here, besides getting rid of bureaucracy or having a holding law like Mr. Navaf asked? What do you think?
Well, first off, exciting to hear about Carlyle potentially doing a wind project in Romania. That would be very exciting. They're a great company. I think one thing that is useful to understand is that Americans have a unique characteristic in that we're often very optimistic and willing to take risk if we think we can succeed on business and make a difference in the world. And I think Romania has a lot to offer to many Americans, and many of the people that we've talked to are in America are excited about Romania, willing to invest in Romania. But the environment remains somewhat uncertain. Mark's comments at the beginning were very interesting that, as he developed over 12 years a project, there were many times when he was uncertain as to what the problem was. And that type of uncertainty is really what puts at risk Americans' willingness to invest. And so anything that can be done to provide more certainty and more clarity on if external investors invest in Romania, how they can expect to be treated and what kind of return that they can make would be very positive. The changing of taxes at any moment, the changing of a law regarding a particular industry for an unknown reason, those are the types of things I think that scare Western investors and potentially make them evaluate investments in other regions rather than Romania.
Thank you very much. If you want to say one more word, I think we touched some big issue here, not only about energy, about policymakers and about the risk not to understand that we have a lot of resources, but we have to use it responsibly. Mr. Beacom?
Sure. I would like to close out and just reiterate that Romania is sitting in an amazing position. The opportunities are there, whether it's near term to try and flood the market with gas, bring gas into Western Europe. It's desperate for gas during this transition and energy security problem. And honestly, if Romania had been able to develop the Black Sea, that gas that's sitting there ready to be developed, had developed it in front of what's happened in Ukraine and been able to be a big exporter of gas into Europe, I can tell the Romanian energy minister walking to Brussels would get a red carpet, and they'd be saying, "What can we do for you?" And he'd say, "Schengen, fixed." So
okay.
It's an opportunity that was lost, but that's near term. We still have the longer term, and I think offshore wind is well, I've pointed out, is a huge potential, and I hope that this opportunity is realized.
Thank you, Professor Mustafa. Besides criticizing the government, which are our habit from hundreds of years, is there anything we can do? I mean, media, academia, or the citizens about it?
Yeah, with few words, let's continue to do what we are doing from academia point of view. Let's contribute to the development with the research and data and a fair and right point of view and information for decision makers. And generally speaking, based on the data on the macroeconomics data, we as an national economy are in a good position. And my recommendation is let's now blow up in the next period, right?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Martin, Mr. Bickham, Professor Mostatse. Here we are closing our first part of the debate. We will have a break and then we will get back to our debate, and we will speak about security at the Black Sea. But let me tell you this, you can watch this on newsweek.ro, on our Facebook page, and also we will put a translated version of it, because I think some very interesting things were said here and are very important for us to understand how to make of this friendship with the United States a very profitable one for our country. Thank you so much. We'll take a break and then we'll be back.